Good evening, Leon, and good evening to everyone, and welcome to another edition of Mondays with the Mayor. I'm Daryl Grinnell, and I want to send out a special shout to one of my listeners who listens every week, Miss Helen White. Good evening to you, and good evening to everyone. It's really good to be here another Monday for another edition of the show, and um, of course, today the topic is about the pandemic, COVID-19. And I have several guests that are on the show today. First of all, I have Judge Tony Heidelberg. Um, Tony Heidelberg, a longtime attorney here in Natchez Adams County. And he's going to talk to us about the impact that this disease has on the Black American community. So I'll let Tony say good evening in his own way. Good evening, Tony.
Good evening, Mayor. How you doing? So I guess it's
I'm
my
doing
free for
great.
all.
Doing great.
Good. Thank you so much for inviting me to come on. This is very close and dear to my heart, and it's very important for all communities. But I really want to speak specifically to the African American community, if you will allow.
Yes, Tony, and that's what I would appreciate if you would, tell the audience about the impact of the coronavirus to the Black American community.
Yes, sir. I've been following the data for quite some time. Just to bring everybody up to speed, as of yesterday, which would have been April 19th, we have 4,512 cases in Mississippi, 169 deaths in Mississippi. Specifically in Adams County, we have 83 total cases with 6 deaths. That's 6 too many. That's 83 too many. I've had the opportunity to speak to a number of folks concerning the plight of the African American race as relates to the COVID-19 pandemic. One thing that I'm seeing that's becoming prevalent in all the information that's being disseminated is that a lot of African Americans feel that this virus will not touch them, cannot touch them, as if they are immune. Contrary to their belief, Mr. Mayor, we're looking at roughly nationwide about 70% of these deaths are African American. And it shouldn't be alarming to most if you've been following any and everything that is on the news, is because we have some of the highest risk factors, stuff like heart disease, diabetes, hypertension, obesity. Those 4 things are very prevalent in the African American community. And those 4 things are underlying health issues that are causing a lot of African Americans to depart life here. But the thing that's most important to me that I'm seeing is that about 60% of the deaths all around are female. I read that yesterday and I saw it in a chart. And if you deduce what we have here, which is the majority of the deaths are African American, and that the majority of deaths are coming through to be African of female origin, then it is our older females who are in fact most affected. So, and with that being said, as it relates to our community, I may be asymptomatic. My brother may be asymptomatic, but when we go home to visit my mother and we're walking around with coronavirus within our system, we are infecting her. I'm saying that to say this, that even though we as young folks might not have as many issues with this virus, don't get me wrong, I'm not saying we're immune from it, but we're taking it home to our mothers and our aunties and our cousins and things of that nature. And with that being the case, we've got to be very vigilant in protecting our queens. It is highly important that we heed to this stay home that the mayor has given. It's highly important that we heed the fact that we need to wear masks. It's highly important that we heed the fact that if we have gloves available, we need to wear those. We need to sanitize consistently. We, as African Americans, we are not immune. In fact, we're dying off at an alarming rate, Mr. Mayor.
Yeah, Tony, you're totally correct. When we look at the statistics across this country. And even, one of our neighboring cities, when we look at New Orleans, Louisiana, we find that the incidents of fatalities from this pandemic have been Black Americans. And you're right, this virus is it's a unique virus compared to, like the flu, etc. You can contract the virus and you might not have any signs or symptoms, but you're still contagious. You can still spread this virus. And there are people, that really don't realize that you can spread it to your mom or to your aunt or to your dad or to some other relative, and they become symptomatic. And we find that once a person becomes symptomatic, there are different degrees of it. I mean, one of the bad things that can occur is that the person ends up in respiratory distress and they have to be placed on a ventilator. And let me tell you the statistics there. Over 70% of the individuals that go on a ventilator, they don't survive. They die. Less than 30% come off the ventilator. So, it's important for people to understand that this virus is totally different from like the flu. Normally when you're symptomatic for the flu, you're contagious. You can spread it from person to person, especially when you have a fever. When you go into the asymptomatic mode, you're normally not contagious. But this coronavirus is totally different than any other. And another thing that medical practitioners they're discovering a whole lot of other things, that there's a possibility that in about 30% of the cases of individuals who are affected, the virus has some type of effect on the nervous system.
Yes.
Since this virus has become a pandemic and is impacting places like the United States, the medical community, they are actually discovering a whole lot of other things that this virus is impacting to the human body. So it's a very serious disease out there, and it's important for people to practice all of the necessary aseptic practices and protocols that have been put in place. I had to run to the store this morning just to get essentials, and I noticed that there were some people who did not even have a face covering, such as a mask or a bandana and so forth. And, it made me wonder if they thought that they were resistant or something to the disease. But it's really important for everybody, even if you feel that you're asymptomatic, you still need to cover because you're contagious. Tony?
Yeah,
Mayor.
Mr. Mayor, also, I'm sorry, I apologize.
Yes. We also have on the show today Alderwoman Sarah Carter Smith. I think she wants to say something on this about this subject matter that
Well,
we're
Tony, you can go
discussing right
ahead.
now.
I started before Tony started, so go ahead, Tony. You can finish, and then I'll come back.
Just real quickly, a lot of people view this time, Mayor, as a time to kind of rest and relax. It's kind of like a 4th of July or Easter weekend, which means that families congregate, come together, fellowship, have a good time. It is not that case. We are not working for a reason. That's to keep the spread from this serious virus from happening. So we must resist the idea of visiting folks we don't need to visit at any given time. I heard today, leaving the market, as you went to the market earlier, a gentleman asked a friend in the parking lot, "Man, when are you going to come see me?" He said, "When the world starts back to working." That's his, I like that sentiment, that he was saying that I am taking this extremely seriously, and I appreciate that. Before I get off this, I gotta have one shameless plug, if you don't mind, Mr. Mayor, and that's going to be that
Go ahead.
I am wearing a shirt that says Dad of a Natchez High School Star Scholar. My daughter Carly, who's the valedictorian at Natchez High School, delivered this shirt to me, and I'm proud that she's a star student.
Oh, well, congratulations, and congratulations to her on being on her achievement of being valedictorian of her class. Sarah, you want to say something on this subject matter?
Well, first, I'm going to second that. Wow, that is amazing. Congratulations to Dad and her. That's quite an accomplishment. So that's very impressive. But yes, one of the things I know, I think Tony might have been on the call as well, David, on our COVID task force call that really interests me, hit home, and I figure a lot of people out there do not even know this yet, because I've talked to some folks today and they go, wow, I did not know this. So the virus has previously most likely been presenting itself, if you're not asymptomatic, as respiratory issues mostly. And then they talked about what they're seeing in the hospital today are gastrointestinal issues. So there could be people thinking they might just have a stomach virus and not even realizing that they could have COVID right then and there and probably need to be tested. So with that information, I definitely want to get that out to the public, that it's presenting in other ways, and that's besides asymptomatic, besides respiratory. So now we've got gastrointestinal issues, which are causing dehydration and UTIs and things like that, which is, another thing. And they talked about even, some septic issues. So very, very scary thing, this virus.
Yes, you're right. You're correct, Alderwoman Sarah Carter Smith. Uh, as mentioned in the task force meeting this morning, they discovered that it is having an impact in some cases on the gastrointestinal system. So there are a lot of new things that they are discovering about this virus, that wasn't said back when it was an epidemic in China. Once it has become a pandemic and has spread to all these other countries, including the United States of America, the medical community is discovering more things about this particular virus. So you're totally right. We actually were supposed to have a caller to be on the line with us, a gentleman by the name of Randy Ledgerjay. And he was going to actually talk about how the virus hits home. Is he on the call? Dustin,
No,
did he get on the call?
we did not get him on the call.
Okay. Well, he was basically going to talk about how the virus, has hit home for him because he has very close relatives, two very close relatives that are actually in a hospital in Baton Rouge at the moment. One of the relatives is on a vent, and the other one is seriously ill, but not on a vent at the moment. And today I received a call from a lady who has a relative that is at the Baptist hospital, a Miss Miller, who has been on a ventilator for 14 days. And she's requesting prayers for her relative. And her relative's name is Miss Miller, who's been on the vent for 14 days. So we're putting a request out there to the audience to pray for Miss Miller that she comes off of this vent, and pray for her family because they're really worried about her. So I mean, the virus is it's a serious matter. We put these policies in place here in our community for a reason, and that is to basically help to save lives of our citizens and prevent them from contracting this particular virus. Now, one of the things that recently occurred at a Board of Aldermen meeting on last week is the election process for the city of Natchez. As you know, this is the election year for the city of Natchez. So Alderwoman Sarah Carter Smith is on the call with us today to talk about the election for the city of Natchez. Alderwoman Smith.
Oh, thank you, Mr. Mayor. Yes, one of the things that we felt was very important and was voted unanimously was to postpone the election. And so just to make it clear, you all can write down these dates. We have the June 2nd will now be the primary. June 23rd will be the runoff if needed. And then July 14th will be the general election, followed by the inaugural ceremony, which will be July 24th. And so I think the board just felt with our stay-home order, with the recommendations from the CDC nationally, we had a responsibility to our citizens to keep them the safest that we can do on our part. And this was one of the things that we could do to help everyone stay safer and not to gather. And we're so worried about gathering. That would be an time that people would tend to go, all at the same times. A lot of times it's lunchtime, a lot of times early in the morning to vote. So we don't want that to be a situation that we have put anyone else in more danger than they have to be in just on a regular basis. So with that being said, our other thing that we really, really want to promote tonight is your option as a citizen in the city limits to vote by absentee ballot. And the mayor has set up within his office the application for that on our website. So you may get on that, and then you download that to your computer, and you would fill it out and then email it back. So it's not interactive where you can just fill it in and send it back through the website. You would need to download it, fill it out, and then you may attach it to an email and send it back in. So you don't even have to come to City Hall to get the form for it. You may do that strictly from our website. And we'll also put social media posts out with links to it that can make it easier for you all that just don't get on the website that often. Pretty much everybody that does social media. So that's another way we'll get that information out. If you had to go to City Hall, Mayor, what is the process y'all put in place for that?
Well, basically, they don't even have to come to City Hall. They can actually call the city clerk's office at 445-7500. That's 445-7500. And the city clerk will answer the phone, and she will mail them out an application and a ballot in order for them to go ahead on and vote. So they can make a phone call, or they can go to the city's website. It's best not to even try to go down to City Hall. If they go to City Hall, they'll find that the doors are locked, but they can call and somebody can come to the door and give them an application. We're trying to practice social distancing there at City Hall. So they can call the number. If they're not, well versed on going to a website, downloading the application, they can just simply call City Hall and request to vote absentee, and we'll take care of them without a problem. But I think, Sarah, it's important that when they get the application, that they write on the application the reason why they're voting absentee. And the reason that most people out there can vote absentee, if you don't meet the criteria such as age and so forth, is simply to say you have a disability based on COVID-19. Because, we are basically disabled because of this pandemic. So it doesn't mean that you have a physical disability. What it simply means is that because of the stay-home order, you cannot go out because of this pandemic. So you can simply write COVID-19 on the application as the reason for voting absentee.
Hopefully, Mr. Mayor, most folks will do that, but I know that Mr. Gardner had some things they were going to put in place actually at the polls. Do you know, is he on this call?
No, Larry Gardner unfortunately could not make it for this call this evening.
Okay, I can recall some of them that I heard him speak of, and that certainly was to arm everyone that works there with the mask and the protective equipment they would need at the polls, space them out in the tables where they would be spaced at 6 feet apart so there would be no crowding to put your name in. And then they would work on setting up a process to only let a certain number of people in at one time to keep them safe. But I mean, all in all, I do hope that most people will be able to avoid this, especially everyone out there that is in more danger, meaning, age and underlying conditions and all, would please consider taking the time. If you don't know how, get, maybe a grandchild could download it and email it to you, or get some help from someone. And call City Hall. Absolutely call City Hall, and we will mail you one, as the mayor mentioned.
Tony, you want to comment on this issue?
Yes, Mr. Mayor, I'm only coming because I am also on Facebook Live, and I know if other people will be able to hear exactly what is being said. But we were talking about absentee voting, and one thing that Mr. Mayor, you mentioned that one disability that they can put on the actual affidavit is that they have a disability via the COVID-19, the virus, and that is actually a disability for those who are actually out there who are listening outside the radio station.
Right, and I appreciate you emphasizing that. Sarah, will you mention those dates again for the public in terms of the new dates for the city election so that the citizens can know those that plan to actually come to the polls to vote?
Yes, Mr. Mayor. Now, the primary election for the city of Natchez will take place on June 2nd. The runoff election, if needed, will take place on June 23rd. The general election will take place on July 14th. And then the swearing in inaugural ceremony will take place on July 24th. So basically, we'll be starting a month later, the new board. So it's really not going to take that much time out of the term for this upcoming elected board of aldermen and mayor, but it will do something very important to help keep everyone safe. So it's absolutely worth doing that.
Okay. And, you know, normally I would have gone out of office July 1st. Now I will be in office as mayor, and I guess my last day will be July 23rd because the new administration will be taking office on the 24th. So that transition will be on the 24th of July. So I will be no longer the mayor of the city of Natchez by July 24th of this year. So anything else, Sarah, that you need to mention about the elections?
I think that's about it. I will say it's, you know how Natchez is and rumors can run about, but I've heard a couple of people say, did the mayor have any motivation to do this politically? And I can't imagine. He is ready to retire and move on with his life. So I can't imagine there would be any motivation for you to do this besides, you know, what we all know is to keep everyone as safe as possible. That's the only motivation here. So I just
Well,
want to point that out, Mayor.
well, I appreciate that, Sarah. I mean, my job is to, you know, take care of the citizens, and that's been my mission since day one, is to take care of. And you know, I've not done anything the 4 years I've been here in office for any political or personal gain reasons. I have no need for doing anything for any gains or political reasons. I mean, I'm leaving office. I'm not running for office again. So. Yeah.
And I've heard you mention once, you know, wonder where you are in your life when something like this happens. And your position as mayor at this point in time has certainly been important to the city with getting information out fast, forming the task force before even the state formed a task force, and just being proactive instead of reactive. We've always tried to hit things beforehand or be as communicative as we can to get this message out to the people that we want everyone to be safe.
Well, thank you, Sarah. And you know, one of the most coincidental things about this is that here I am. You know, I dealt with pandemics, epidemics, endemics as a microbiologist for 30 years, and here I am in this role as mayor, and also with a microbiology background. And before I'm leaving office, I'm faced with a pandemic. I never thought, you know, the years that I've been in office, or even when I taught microbiology for 30 years, that I would be facing a pandemic. I mean, I've written articles about pandemics of the past, and here it is that we're facing a pandemic before I leave office. What a coincidence!
Meant to be.
Yeah, Tony, anything you wanted to talk about?
Uh, not much, Mayor. Basically, where I am, it's just simple. Particularly for all communities. Number one, we need to practice everything that's been put in place by our mayor. We need to stay home. Don't get comfortable to say that it's gone past us, because you know our numbers are still high, and we need to take this opportunity to reflect on ourselves and our lives, but also as we are going about our daily routines, be reminded that we are protectors of our elderly and of our weak and of our sick. And if we don't exercise the right things, then we can bring the wrong things home to them. And then we will be responsible for the deaths of our loved ones. If I can say anything else, don't be responsible for the death of your loved one because you are too selfish to not sit at home or just do what's necessary for us to get past this. Don't be a killer.
And Tony,
Well,
Heidelberg, we would be remiss if we did not thank you for all the communications you've had. You've saved lives out there. There's no doubt with all of your Facebook posts. You've laid it out there like it is, and you've never hesitated to do so. And that has just been a gift to our community. So thank you.
Thank you.
well,
Thank you all.
Tony, I totally agree what Sarah said. I mean, you've been a strong supporter. You've been a voice out there in the community. You've been spreading the word, and you've been proactive on this pandemic. But also, Sarah, you and all of the members of the task force. I mean,
Yes.
because Daryl hasn't been able to do this by himself. I mean, our task force has been movers and shakers. And I want to thank Sarah and all of the members of the task force. William Thames, who's the chairman of the task force, has been excellent. And of course, my assistant in the mayor's office, both Pam and Dustin, they've actually been assets. I mean, we've been having our board meetings for the city of Natchez by virtual meetings now in order to prevent people from coming in contact with each other. And I tell you, Pam and Dustin, they have been truly an asset to the city. And I really thank them for all that they've done to help us here. But again, I want to stress to the citizens of Natchez, Adams County, when you go out to the stores to purchase your essential items, please wear some type of face covering. Please take some type of hand sanitizer, if it's just basic rubbing alcohol, with you, and cleanse your hands before you remove your mask. You know, make sure you either wash them or sanitize your hands before you remove the mask from your face so that you don't contaminate yourselves. So I strongly urge citizens to wash, and sanitize as much as possible while you're out performing your essential duties. Another thing I want to urge the citizens, you know, it is okay to go out and exercise, to go for a walk, a run, get on your bicycle, get out of your house and exercise. Don't exercise with a large group of people, but go out and please try to exercise. Keep yourselves active. Get you some board games and have, you know, board games between you and your wife or your husband or your family members right there at the house in order to keep yourselves going. You know, take on some nice hobbies. Keep yourselves active throughout this entire process of this pandemic until we can get through it.
Well,
Any
and you
final words? I'm sorry, Sarah, go ahead.
No, I was just thinking you did bring up, and I know we're running out of time, but quickly, the mental health aspect of this, and that we're now going to try to form a mental health task force because that's an issue that's going to affect a lot of people for quite a long time. So your advice is excellent, and just let everyone know that we will try to work on that going forward too, because there will be
Yeah.
long-term effects of this.
Yeah, and that's something that I spoke to the task force about this morning that Sarah just reminded me of, is that we will be forming a task force, a council, or a committee to deal with mental health. Because as a result of this pandemic, you know, there are people who may have developed, you know, some type of issues like panic issues and agoraphobia and other issues. So we're going to put that together and begin to work towards that. So I'll be forming a group in order to start working towards mental health for this community. And anybody out there who you know wishes to serve on that, you know, you may have a specialty in it, or you might be a good resource. Just simply call the mayor's office, let me know, and I'll be happy to put you on that task force. Because mental health from this pandemic is going to be something that we've got we've got to address. Tony,
Mayor, I think we're
any
out of
final
time.
words?
Thank you so much for
Okay.
your hard work and your guidance, and we really appreciate you.
Well, I appreciate you, Tony, and thank you for all that you do for this community. God bless you. And Sarah, any final words from you?
No, just be diligent, everyone. Thank you, and be safe.
Okay, Sarah, thank you, and God bless you and your family. And with that, to each of you out there, please, please be safe. Sanitize, sanitize, sanitize. Keep your hands away from your face. God bless each of you. Thank you, WMIS, WTYJ. God bless Natchez. I'm Daryl Grinnell for Monday with the Mayor.